Good afternoon. Good afternoon to all. I hope you can hear me well. I'm very happy to welcome you all in this information session dedicated to the Marie Skłodowska Curie actions. This session is organized by Euraccess Africa, and I would like to take the opportunity to thank warmly Ahmed Mahlel, the representative of Euraccess Africa, for the organization of this info session. So my name is Julie Leprêtre, and I'm a policy officer in the Marie Skłodowska Curie Actions Unit at the Directorate General for Education, Youth, Sport and Culture at the European Commission. And actually, I will be today the moderator of the event, but my role will be very limited, very modest, as actually the presentations will be delivered today by my very knowledgeable colleagues in charge of the Marie Skłodowska Curie actions. So the colleagues that you can see on the screen will present each of the actions of relevance for all of you at this point of time. And they will of course be available to reply to any of your questions. Just to stress very quickly of course, Lucy Swan will come back later on this point, and of course also my colleagues during their presentations. But let me stress very briefly that the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions under the Pillar 1 of Horizon Europe fund excellent research and innovation, and they equip researchers at all stages of their career with new knowledge and skills through mobility across borders and exposure to different sectors and disciplines. The MSCA, actually that's the short name of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, and I believe it will be easier for us to be understood this afternoon. The MSCA also funds the development of excellent doctoral and postdoctoral training programs and collaborative research projects worldwide. So by doing so, we achieve an impact on higher education institutions, research centers, non-academic organizations, and also we hope to have an impact on your career as a researcher. So during this information session, actually, we will focus on 3 of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, namely doctoral networks, staff exchanges, and postdoctoral fellowships. We wanted actually to focus on those ones since calls are ongoing or will be published very soon. So we believe that it is the right moment in time for you to understand or to discover what these actions cover. You will be able to ask questions to the speakers after each of the presentations, as I said already, but I would like you just to respect one rule is to use the Slido. So you got the Slido link before the webinar started. The link will also be displayed again by Ahmed Malel during his presentation. And I believe that we can share at one point in the chat box as well the link to connect to Slido. So it will be super useful for us if you could share your questions through Slido, because actually it will be easier for us to manage. Of course, if there are some comments in the chat, we'll do our best to have a look at them as well and to reply to all of your questions, because the idea is really for you to get answers to the questions you may have on the different actions. So we'll start by a presentation of Euraccess Africa by Ahmed Malel, who will be able to explain to you the full support he will be able to provide you in the months to come and in the years to come. So I will now leave him the floor. So Ahmed, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie. It is my pleasure today to introduce Euraccess Africa. Thanks to you, thanks to all MSCA team and for all the participants for being here today with us in this MSCA Africa webinar. And first of all, I present myself. So if you can see my screen.
We can.
Yes, okay. First of all, I will present myself. I am Ahmed Malel. I am the regional representative for Euraccess Africa, and I am associate professor in computer science at University of South Tunisia, and also I am former Horizon Europe National Contact Point for Cluster for Digital and Horizon 2020 ICT and CP in Tunisia. So for Euraccess Worldwide is a European initiative backed by the European Commission, consisting for services, portals, and tools dedicated to research working outside of Europe, which to connect with their fellow professionals or engaged in research and innovation, collaboration, and career opportunities in Europe. Euraccess is a networking platform, reliable source of information and ideas on research and innovation jobs, funding and hosting opportunities in Europe, helps talented European and international researchers to explore and create transnational teams with researchers, employees, and scientific communities, and helps to develop careers within the global research and innovation system. Here you can see the photo of Euraccess Worldwide team. We are in Korea, we are in India, in North America and in Japan, and also we are in Africa. So for 2021 is the year of preparatory activities for establishment of Euraccess Africa Hub. So here you can see in the platform, an Euraccess platform, you can see the tab of Euraccess worldwide, and if we click in this tab, you can see in the top Africa. So for 2022, we have the official launch of Euraccess Africa Hub. So you can here sign up for free membership to Euraccess Africa to get all the opportunities in the real time. What can we do for you? Euraccess Africa promotes European Union national research landscape, promotes European Union funding opportunities, promote Euraccess network, and its speakers from the network, and connect research with research labs. So our tools are the website, the platform of Euraccess. We have social media in LinkedIn, in Twitter, in Facebook, and many more. We have the flash notes and newsletter. We have the affirmation sessions like this affirmation session for Africa Today, and we have the practical workshops. So for 2022 events, in March 16, 2022, we have organized the ERC, European Research Council, webinars for research in Africa. We have organized 2 webinars, one in French and another one in English. So after that, in March 2022, we have the first, in the first time, we have presented Euraccess Africa, the future of Euraccess in Africa. We have also my colleague in Tunisia, we have presented Euraccess Tunisia for the first national network for Euraccess in the first country in Africa. So here in SUS, we have the second networking day in the Faculty of Medicine of SUS in 17 June 2022. After that, we have participated to Horizon Europe Info Day in Morocco, in Agadir, and the practical workshop dedicated to how to profit to all the opportunities given by Horizon Europe. Have made a very interesting exchange with all the involved actors in Morocco. So here we can see the MSCA Africa webinar. Today, July 8th, we have our webinar in English. For the key partners in Africa, we have many key partners. We have ERD, we have Agence Universitaire de la Francophonie, we have the African Academy of Sciences, we have the African Union, we have the Réseau Institut Pasteur, and many more. So here we show the promotional video for Euraccess Africa, and let's see what is Euraccess Africa. So that's all. Join us. It's free. Be informed, be proactive. Click on this button and join us. Join our community for research in Africa to profit for all the opportunities given by the European Commission. So we are in Facebook, we are in Twitter, we are in LinkedIn, and our mail is africa@euraccess.net. Free and easy and valuable. Thank you for your attention, and the floor is yours, Julie.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ahmed Malel, for this presentation of Euraccess Africa. Actually, what I wanted also to stress is that, as you know, we are very happy that the office has been launched, because we are sure that you will provide full support to African researchers and organizations, and it's really of help also for us to promote the opportunities under Horizon Europe, and offers the opportunities offered by the Marie Skłodowska Curie Action. So thank you very much for all the support. And thank you again for this presentation. So now I will give the floor to Lucy Swan, who is the Deputy Head of the unit Marie Skłodowska Curie Actions at the European Commission. And Lucy will present an overview and the key features of the MSCA under Horizon Europe. So please, Lucy, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julie, and thank you, Ahmed, for your very interesting introduction. And good afternoon, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here to give you a brief overview of the Marie Skłodowska Curie actions. So I think Julie is putting my presentation now. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Julie.
You can see it, right?
Yeah, there's some funny blocks on it, but we can kind of see it. Maybe go to the next slide, and yeah.
I will try to do my best to remove the black squares, but please maybe go ahead, and I will do this while you are talking.
Okay, so the Marie Skłodowska Curie actions are part of the Horizon Europe framework program for research and innovation. So the Marie Skłodowska Curie actions are in Pillar 1 of Horizon Europe, and together with the European Research Council and research infrastructures, they have a budget of 6.6 billion euros for the 7-year period from 2021 to 2027. Can you move to the next slide, Julie? I think we can more or less see. That's it. So what are the MSCA? Well, Julie mentioned already briefly. So the MSCA are the EU's reference program for doctoral and postdoctoral training, and they contribute to support highly skilled researchers who are able to detect and tackle upcoming challenges, who are able to communicate scientific evidence to policymakers and the public, and who are able to work across disciplines. The MSCA provide researchers with skills needed in the labour market to innovate and to convert knowledge and ideas into products and services for economic and social benefit. And the MSCA also support the development of excellent doctoral programs, which Sahil will speak to you about a little bit later. And these programs, of course, enhance the global attractiveness and visibility of the institutions involved. And last but not least, the program promotes the EU's global attractiveness for talents. As I'll mention later, it's a program that's very much open to the world. It has a budget under Horizon Europe, as I said, of 6.6 billion and a worldwide geographical coverage. Next slide, please, Julie. So what are the key features of the MSCA? So first of all, the program supports researchers at any stage of their career with a focus on their training, skills, and career development. The program is also bottom-up and open to all scientific disciplines. So proposals are selected on the basis of their excellence, the impact and quality and efficiency of their implementation. The program supports international, cross-sectoral and interdisciplinary cooperation and mobility. The program is open to researchers from all over the world, as I mentioned before, and today about 40% of MSCA researchers are actually from outside the European Union. The MSCA promotes attractive working and employment conditions. MSCA researchers are recruited with an employment contract, social security coverage, sickness insurance, as well as monthly allowances to cover their living, mobility and family costs. And this is foreseen as part of the MSCA. These are mandatory requirements. The program has a structuring impact on organizations through the development of excellent doctoral and postdoctoral programs and collaborative projects, which allow institutions participating in the program to increase their visibility and global attractiveness. And last but not least, the program promotes strong links beyond academia with industry and SMEs, including through financial incentives. So these are the key features. Here are some figures for the last programming period, which was 2014-2020. So over the past 7 years, the MSCA supported 65,000 researchers in Europe and beyond, both doctoral candidates, which represented 25,000 researchers, as well as more experienced researchers. And the actions have funded more than 1,000 excellent international doctoral networks. The program, as I've mentioned before, has promoted strong links beyond academia with industry and SMEs, with 4,500 companies involved. And the program has contributed to achieving equal access of women and girls to science, with female researchers making up almost 42% of the researchers supported by the program. So that's for the key features. Now, what are the actual actions? We have 5 main actions. We have the Doctoral Networks, which supports doctoral programs in and outside academia, including joint and industrial doctorates. And Sohail will say a few more words about that later on. Postdoctoral Fellowships, which support excellent postdoctoral researchers, again, from all over the world. Staff exchanges and postdoctoral fellowships, my colleague Anouk will present that a bit later. Staff exchanges, which provide support for research and innovation staff exchanges. Again, you have a presentation on that later on. And co-fund, which co-funds doctoral and postdoctoral programs. And last but not least, MSCA and Citizens, which is the part of the program that promotes public outreach events, including the European Researchers' Night. And a new aspect, which is researchers at schools. So that's for the actions. Some key figures relating to Africa. So for the last programming period, the MSCA supported over 1,800 African researchers. There were 277 participations of African organizations, 150 projects, and 182 individual institutions who participated, including 47% of universities, 22% of private not-for-profit organizations, 15 research centers, and over 6% of public organizations involved. And the participation covered 45 countries. So that's some of the figures from the last programming period. Let's hope to beat that for the upcoming one. Thank you, Julie. And the next slide is the call calendar. So here, well, it's the second part of the calendar that's of interest, because the first is the 2021 call, which are all closed. We're busy finalizing those the results of those different calls. But for 2022, we've already had 2 calls that opened in May, and that was the Doctoral Networks and Postdoctoral Fellowships, which have respectively deadlines on the 15th of November 2022 and the 14th of September 2022. Then we'll have the staff exchanges, which opens on the 6th of October 2022 and closes in March 23. co-fund, which opens also in October 2022 and closes in February. And MSCA and Citizens, that was last year because it's for two years. So that's for the call calendar. Then I've provided in my slides some various links to get further information, to get more involved. So there are several links here and on the next page. Hopefully the slides will be sent around, I assume, Julie, so that you can have those links directly. So I think the next slide is, Julie, if you can just, yeah, so these are the main references to the Marie Curie website, the funding and tenders portal, which is where you submit applications and get all the relevant information on the documents needed. Your access, of course, national contact points, research inquiry services, and some useful information in particular on various guides that we've prepared, the MSCA guidelines on supervision and the MSCA Green Charter, which are important reference documents to support our programme. So I think you have all the relevant information here. So this was just a general introduction, but my colleagues will go more into detail of the different actions, but I'm happy to answer any more general questions at this stage if there are any. Thanks a lot, Julie.
Thank you very much, Lucy, for this presentation. Actually, I see that there are some comments in the chat, but I was looking also on Slido because I could not have a look at the chat because I was sharing the slides. But first of all, I would like to say to all of our participants this afternoon that yes, the presentations, all the presentations will be shared with you after this information session, meaning that of course you will have access to all these links that were displayed on the screen right before. I would like also maybe to stress that one of the links is the Marie Curie Alumni Association, and that there is an African chapter that you can also rely on for any further information, because that African chapter is now quite active. Maybe just for you to know that in the Slido, I could see a question on the link with the Africa initiative, and actually the question is about any Pillar 1 component in the Africa initiative or any Africa component in MSCA. So I don't know if you want to reply to the last part of that question about the component of the Africa component in MSCA, and maybe I can make also then a reply on the Africa initiative.
Well, Julie, you can probably give more details, but I think in terms of the Africa component in MSCA, as I said in my presentation, well, MSCA is very much open to the world, so very much open to researchers from Africa, but also organizations that can take part in some of the actions. Obviously, there's different rules and eligibility criteria according to the different actions, but my colleagues will go more into detail. So it's very much open, and we really want to promote participation of African organizations and researchers in the MSCA. But Julie, maybe you can say a little bit more about what we do more specifically.
No, thank you very much. Actually, I just wanted to add something about the Africa initiative. So indeed, the Africa initiative, for those who don't know, actually has been launched under the Horizon Europe work program by the Directorate General for Research and Innovation. And there are almost, I think, 42 calls related to different fields in in research and innovation, and which are specifically open to African researchers and organizations. And actually the MSCA are not directly part of the Africa initiative, but of course contribute to it, as it is indeed actions which are open to African researchers and African organizations to What I would like also maybe to mention again, because Lucy said it already, but we would like also to stress again that the MSCA, the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, are a bottom-up program, meaning that under the Africa Initiative, you have dedicated calls to specific topics. With the MSCA, again, African researchers and organizations can apply, and it's a bottom-up approach, meaning that it addresses all the scientific fields. So that's something I wanted also to stress again. I hope we replied to that question. There was also one about how to connect the priorities on Africa's side and the priorities in research and innovation on the European Commission side. And I would like also to stress here that, of course, all these priorities are discussed very regularly between the European Commission and the African Union Commission, meaning that, of course, all these priorities are also identified and discussed jointly. I hope that we replied to the questions, but actually what I will do now is that I will also check the other comments and questions in the chat while I will be giving the floor to the next speaker. And of course, we can come back to questions which would not have been answered later on during the webinar, if it is fine with all of you. So thank you very much. Thank you, Lucy, for your presentation and for these first answers. Again, we will come back to some of the questions if necessary. And I will now give the floor to my colleague, Sohail Luka, who is a policy officer in the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions Unit at the European Commission, and who will present you the doctoral networks. So one of the 3 actions I told you at the very beginning that we wanted to put a focus on during this presentation today. After the presentation of Sohail, again, there will be a possibility for you to address questions. So we will try to answer again them all. Thank you very much, and the floor is yours, Sohail.
Thank you, Julie, and good afternoon, everybody, and greetings from Brussels. I'm very, very happy to be talking to you today about the doctoral networks, and I'm trying to share my screen now so that you can see my presentation. I hope you do.
We do. If you can put
Excellent.
it full screen.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the next slide that you've seen before, as Lucy showed it to you, it just indicates here that out of the 5 actions of MSCA, the doctoral networks it takes 50% of the budget. The doctoral networks, we offer it in 3 different types. The standard doctoral networks, and this is the majority, like on a typical year, maybe 80% of the projects are in the standard doctoral networks. And these doctoral networks are applied for by institutions, by a consortium of institutions, not by individual researchers. And I will talk a bit about this later, about what is available if you are an institution like a university or a research institution or even NGO or a charity, or if you are an individual researcher wanting to pursue the PhD. So in these doctoral networks, the standard ones, a minimum of 3 institutions get together and apply to the European Commission to establish a network that later would be offering doctoral fellowships. And a special type of these doctoral networks is the industrial doctorates. And here, the doctoral candidate would be spending part of the time in the academic institution, like the university or wherever he or she will be actually getting the diploma. But then at least half of the period of the doctoral training would be in a non-academic institutions. And here, even though we call it industrial doctorates, it can actually be in any non-academic institutions, such as an NGO, a charity, a hospital, or even a department in a government institution. So the advantage here is that you can actually get the experience of both sides. It's very good for employability, and throughout your doctoral training, you are co-supervised by a supervisor in the academic institution and another supervisor in the non-academic institution. The last type is the joint doctorate, which is a very highly integrated doctoral training where the doctoral candidate is actually enrolled in two different institutions. And at the end of the doctorate, you get either a diploma with two university names on it, or you get two diplomas or more. But usually, you know, more than two, it gets a bit more complicated for the researcher and the supervisors involved. And of course, I will be describing in more detail these three types. This is just, you know, schematically to give you an idea of how our programs in doctoral networks are divided. Some basic features, how big are these? So let me again go back to what I said, that who applies to us is a group of institutions, not individual researchers for the moment. So if a consortium is successful, then in a standard doctoral network, we provide this consortium with 360 person month. What does that mean, 360 person month? This basically means 360 months worth of fellowships. This consortium can divide it in the way they want. But let us assume that they will be providing fellowships that last for 3 years. 3 years means 36 months, which means that 360 person month would be equivalent to 10 fellowships, each lasting for 3 years. Now, for the two programs I mentioned, the industrial doctorates and the joint doctorates, since we want to encourage them, we provide 180 additional person month, so that with the same logic I mentioned would be 5 extra fellowships, a total of 50. The duration of these programs, the actual grant that we give to the consortium lasts for 4 years. That's 48 months. But the fellowships themselves have a maximum of 3 years, 36 months. And the reason the duration of the project is 1 year more than the duration of the fellowship, because once a consortium is successful, they have to get together and organize themselves before they start publishing advertisement for available fellowships. A wonderful tool that all our fellowships have is secondments. Now, secondments means that in whichever country you are doing your doctorate, you can go to another place, another country usually, and spend, you know, up to 1/3 of your fellowship doing some research or learning a technique or networking for the purpose of your doctoral degree. And this enriches the doctoral experience very much by having different experiences, transnational experiences in different countries and in different disciplines and laboratories if it is in the field, you know, of hard sciences. Again, in order to encourage the two doctorates I told you about, the industrial one and the joint doctorate, these secondments can actually be up to 100% of the duration of the fellowship. That is, there is no limit. So basically in this slide, you know, I showed you the size and the duration dimension of our fellowship. Now, some terminology I want to talk about so that you know, you would you know, be able to follow some of the definitions I will say afterwards. How we divide the countries of the world. First, you have the European Union member states. These are the 27 member states. And then we have what is called the associated countries. And what does that mean? It means that some countries negotiated with the European Union an agreement so that they would be treated more or less equally like the EU member states. Currently, there are about 16 of them worldwide, and from Africa, the only one is Tunisia, very, very recently. Third countries means all other countries. Again, another distinction, organizations versus individuals. So I'm sure that the audience, I don't see you, but I'm sure that the audience is divided between colleagues representing a university or a research institution or an industry, but then there are individual researchers who are about to embark on their doctoral adventure or experience, if you will. So these are, they have different opportunities, and conditions are different. And that's why, I wanted to define this at the beginning. Now, when it comes to researchers, both Lucy and Julie mentioned they can be of any nationality. And that is, of course, an attractive aspect of all our actions. There are specific conditions for individual researchers, but I have a dedicated slide for this, so I will not dwell on this. But I just wanted to tell you that for organizations, there is a time to apply and conditions to apply. And for individual researchers, there is a different time to apply and different conditions to apply. Now, let's say if you are representing an organization that is interested in setting up a doctoral program. Then you must find a way to become a part of a consortium. You can initiate the negotiations to talk to collaborators that you know already around the world, or you can look up a consortium that's being formed when you go to conferences or so, and then be part of it, so that you would together form at least the minimum required to apply. The minimum is at least 3 independent legal entities, that is institutions, each established in a different European Union member state or an associated country, with a minimum of 1 in an EU member state. So once you have this minimum of 3, you can add on, as many partners as you like. So generally, we never see a consortium of only 3, but this is the minimum required. Now, if you are an individual, you will have to wait until this consortium that has been formed by institutions has applied, has won the grant, organized itself, and then started publishing advertisement on the internet saying there is a PhD position available in this MSCA funded consortium. And of course, I will tell you later where you can find all of this. But what are the conditions if you are individual? First of all, you have to be enrolled in a doctoral program in an EU member state or an associated country. That is for the normal kind of doctoral networks, and for the industrial doctorates as well. You have to be enrolled as a doctoral candidate in one institution in the EU or in an associated country. If you are enrolled, if you want to go for a joint doctorate, then you will have to be enrolled in minimum 2 institutions in the EU or the associated countries. There is no age restriction. As I said, there is no nationality restriction. And importantly, there is no topic restriction. That's what we call bottom up. We don't impose a field. So you can be working on nuclear science, molecular genetics, but also anthropology, linguistics, geography, or migration. So it's open to all fields. A very important rule is what we call the mobility rule. That is, you cannot get an MSCA fellowship and stay where you are. So you must not have resided or had your main activity in the country of the recruitment. And what if you've been going in and out the country? So we put a rule for this. That is, in total, you should not have spent 12 months in the past 3 years. And of course, this is because one of our philosophy is that we want to encourage mobility. And that's why we have this mobility rule. So as I mentioned, you must be a doctoral candidate. That is, you cannot already have a doctoral degree. And I talked about the enrollment. Now, for the industrial doctorate, you must spend at least 50% of the fellowship duration at the non-academic partner's place. And I mentioned also the nationality and the mobility rule. Now, this is, let's say, what the financial compensation that are associated with the recruitment of a doctoral candidate. So if you get one of these fellowships, what you see in the left column is basically the monthly salary. Okay, and generally it's never exactly like this, because depending on the country, it gets multiplied by a factor in order to factor in the cost of living, etc. But it's along that range. Now, interestingly is what you see in the second column, this 1,600, because it is money that is very useful for a doctoral candidate. You can use this money to go to conferences, publication costs, going to trainings, for instance, but also even if you are, let's say, working in a laboratory, you can use it a bit for consumables and bench fees. And the last column is money that goes to the institution and the consortium for the management cost of hiring and maintaining the doctoral candidate. Now, this is, let's say, a variation of the timetable that Lucy has showed you. Now, you see that for this year, the call is still open for Doctoral Networks until the 15th of November. Now, I'm also showing you the closed call, which closed last November. And there is a reason for this, because if you are an institution, then this closed call should not interest you. But if you are a researcher who is looking for a doctoral position, it is from this call that soon the winning consortia will start organizing themselves, and then after the summer, maybe then positions would start coming out on the internet from these closed calls. Now, one thing we did so that the doctoral candidates would not feel lost in looking at places, that a consortium, when they are advertising doctoral positions, of course, they can advertise it anywhere they like. However, we oblige them that at least they must also advertise it on the wonderful website EurAccess. So, which means that if you go to EurAccess, it means that you are sure that any of the positions from MSCA will be there. And you know, that I'm just showing you schematically how to reach these positions. And of course, you are going to get this presentation. So perhaps, you know, after you digest all what's being said today, also with other colleagues, you can calmly have this as a reference. And even this day, you might already find positions from consortia that had started in the previous framework program that was called H 2020 or Horizon 2020. this is if you are an individual researcher. If you are an organization, you will find all the opportunities on the funding and tender portal that also has its link here. And I hope I was, at least moderately clear. And of course, I'll be very happy to take questions if there are any. Thank you. And I will now unshare my screen and then hand it back over to Julie. Stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Sohail. Thank you for this presentation. Actually, we do have some questions, but they are coming, I have to say, on all the channels. So I'm struggling a bit to find out the questions regarding your presentation specifically. But I have one for you on Doctoral Networks, question coming from Salamana Kiranda. Do the entities need to have an MOU, in place by the time of submitting the application?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Probably.
Yes, for Doctoral Network, do the entities need to have an MOU in place by the time of submitting their application?
The NCPs.
No, the entities.
What? The entities.
The entities.
The entities. Sorry, that's why I got confused. No, the MOU with whom? With.
I guess the question is about the MOU between the different entities taking part. So the question is, should it be already in place before submitting the application?
Not in general for the submission. When only in the case of the joint doctorate, then part of the submission would be an agreement. I mean, it's not, we don't call it a memorandum of understanding, but it would serve the same purpose. And then there are several requirements in there, but there is no requirement for a pre-existing memorandum of understanding.
Thank you very much. I'm just checking if there are other questions. There is one related to database to search for existing doctoral networks or group expressing interest to form and join a network. So it's about database and available networks in order to join or form one.
No, so it's a good question. So I think that's probably about matchmaking. And to my knowledge, there is not a network through us. I mean, it's conceivable, of course, that different institutions would actually have these networks in order to serve their researchers and professors. But I mean, we to my knowledge, we do not have this matchmaking service for forming consortia.
Thank you. I see also, but this is not directly a question to you. This is a question about, I forgot to mention it before, about the success rate of African institutions. Oh yes, sorry, it's actually for you, because it's about the success rate of African institutions in applications for doctoral networks. I'm not sure that we have these figures, but what we can at least share with you all is the number of doctoral networks participation for Africa, but maybe Sohail, you want to complement on that question?
Yeah, I mean, this we have access to. Of course, I mean, I don't have it in my mind. But we have the info by country, by continent, so it's not. Yeah, but unfortunately, I don't have it in my mind. However, let's say the average success rate of doctoral networks in general is not very high. So like for the whole world together in Horizon 2020, it was about 10% or so.
Thank you very much. And then I see that there are some other general questions, either on the other actions. So I just would like to reassure you all that we will also first address postdoctoral fellowships. We will also address staff exchanges in the presentations to come. Yes, we will share the presentations. I really stress that point because we were asked about again to share our slides. It will be the case, so you will have the possibility to have all the presentations of our speakers today. And I suggest then to go on to the next presentation. And again, all the questions in the chat about postdoctoral fellowships and staff exchanges can be addressed with these upcoming presentations. So if I may now, I will again check chat, question and answers, and Slido. But if I can also just stress again that it would be super easier for us to check the Slido questions. So if you don't mind sharing your questions on Slido, but again, we'll do our best to check all the channels. So thank you very much to all. Thank you, Sohail. And now I'm leave the floor to Sandra. Sandra Pinto Marques, who will present now the staff exchanges. And again, you will have 20 minutes of presentation as the other speakers, and of course, then we'll have time for question and answers. So thank you very much, Sandra. The floor is yours, and I will share your presentation.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you for the kind introduction, and thank you for inviting me to these info sessions. So my name is Sandra Pinto Marques. I'm a project officer working in Brussels for the European Research Executive Agency. And today I'll be talking to you about the staff exchanges action, and I hope to motivate you to apply. So first, can you show the next slide, please? Thank you. First, I will show you the main features of our action. And towards the end of my presentation, I'll tell you a little bit, for those that are interested in applying, how to organize your application. So staff exchanges action, what does it fund? It focuses as well on secondments, but here with a bit of a different flavor. All the staff involved in research and innovation activities are eligible for these secondments, so they don't necessarily have to be involved in a PhD. They can be, but they don't all have to be researchers. The mobility of the individual staff is what we fund, as well as the organizations that are sponsoring those individuals for the mobility, for the secondments. There are many interesting aspects in these secondments. They are international. They are between different sectors of activity, so academic and non-academic. And they are also interdisciplinary. So this brings a clear added value to the career of researchers or other types of staff, but also an added value to the organizations. They get to host highly qualified individuals, knowledge transfer takes place, and new collaborations are forged, and cooperation moves forward between very different countries. Next slide, please, Julie. So here's a summary of the added value and how it impacts staff members as well as organizations. So again, staff exchanges has a little bit of a different flavor in the sense that our organizations, many of those organizations participating in our actions are from the non-academic sector. They are either hosting or seconding staff themselves. They can be from member states, associated countries, and third countries, just as my colleague has explained. It is still a bottom-up action, so we hope to motivate new ideas and entrepreneurial spirit to convert those ideas into products, processes, and services. And in doing so, the different staff members acquire new skills and new competences, international exposure, and also forge new collaborations. So these are all clear added values for their career and for the research to be put in place. And the organizations obviously benefit from the transfer of knowledge that ensues once the staff members return to their institution. and from the collaborative networks that are created, increasing their own research and innovation capacity. Next slide, please. So, what are the requirements for the eligible participation? There is a minimum requirement of 3 different institutions, 3, as we call them, legal entities, in 3 different countries, 2 of which should be either EU member states or associated countries. There can be more, and most of our consortia are contain a lot more institutions than 3. Now, if they are all from the academic sector, there needs to be at least 1 organization from a non-associated third country. And here you will see time and time again that the international aspect is very much in place in our action. And in this case, it even bypasses the need for the consortium to be from different sectors. So as long as you have 1 organization from a non-associated third country, all institutions can be either from the academic sector or the non-academic sector. Next slide, please. What types of secondments are eligible for funding? Bon, as you can see from the slide, in orange you have the secondments that are not eligible for funding, and that would be between third countries themselves. So those are not eligible for funding. Other than that, between member states and associated countries and third countries, they are eligible for funding. When in blue, you have 1 new characteristic of staff exchanges compared to the previous scheme, which was RISE, that we are now allowing for the funding of mandatorily interdisciplinary secondments when these are between institutions based in member states or associated countries from the same sector. So this does not necessarily apply to you, would apply to Tunisia, for instance, because they're associated to Horizon Europe. But to most of you, this is not a relevant difficulty, so to speak. But you are able to second to a country in Europe, and this is eligible for funding. Next slide, please. What types of staff are eligible for funding in the secondments? Bon, like I said, many of them are researchers, but they don't all have to be researchers, so long as they are involved in research and innovation activities. So you can have technical staff being seconded, you can have managerial staff being seconded, and they have to have been involved in the research and innovation activities for at least 1 month prior to the first secondment. These secondments can take between 1 to 12 months. They can be split into several stays, and they can be directed at different institutions. The researchers, when we have researchers being seconded, can be early researchers or senior researchers, but they do have, the requirement is, however, in place that they do have to devote themselves to the action full time while during the secondment. In addition, thank you, Julie. In addition, they need to return to the sending institution at the end of the secondment. So next slide, please. How much are we talking about? Now you need to, this looks less appealing than the previous presentation, but you need to remember that in our case, for our action, the staff members are already paid a salary. They're already employed. So what I depict in this slide is the top-up allowance for the researcher or for the staff member being seconded and what we pay the institution. So overall is 4,600. This is euros. This is expressed as unit costs. And half of it is meant to cover extra expenses incurred by the staff member being seconded, such as travel, subsistence costs, etc. And half of it goes to the institution for research, training, networking, management, and indirect costs. Next slide, please. Again, we emphasize interdisciplinarity. This is really not a very important issue for most of you in the audience today. However, why we emphasize it so much is because there is a new aspect in staff exchanges compared to RISE. The projects themselves are always interdisciplinary, but the secondments, some of them have to be interdisciplinary for them to be eligible for funding when they are being performed between institutions of the same sector of activity, so academic to academic or non-academic to non-academic. The way we determine whether the secondments need to mandatorily be interdisciplinary is during evaluation of the proposals. We ask the experts to judge, and they base their judgment on the descriptors that you can find in the REA website that correspond to the first level MSCA keywords for the different panels. I'll give some examples later. Next slide, please, Julie. So here, this is a very easy to grasp concept of interdisciplinarity. Please be aware that you can also have a secondment be considered interdisciplinary when you have the disciplines involved being from the, say, engineering, and you don't need to necessarily involve life sciences. So you can have someone doing activities or performing research in the fields of numerical analysis and energy conversion, for example, and that would still be considered interdisciplinary. So it's based on the first level MSCA keywords. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in summary, the duration of our action is also 4 years. We fund up to 360 person months per project. In our case, the secondments can reach a maximum of 12 months per staff and a minimum of 1 month. The rule of the interdisciplinarity, again, it's for same sector secondments, would only affect, in the case of the audience today, Tunisia, because they are associated to Horizon Europe. The unique costs, as I explained in the previous slide, come up to 4,600 euros, split equally between staff allowance and organization. And the budget is on average 75 million per call for the work program for 2021 and 2022. Now I will tell you a little bit about the application process. So the good news is that you can find all the information in one place. That is the famous Funding and Tenders Opportunities portal. It's easy to find. You put it in Google, it takes you directly there. All the calls are published in the Funding and Tenders Opportunities portal. And if you are already having the idea to participate, you can find the call that interests you. And you can find your partners using also the Funding and Tenders portal. Now, if you have never used the portal, you may be interested in registering your organization. This registration at first is not very cumbersome. It will give you a PIC number for your organization, and this is the number you use when filling in the forms, administrative forms, when you apply for funding in the portal. Next slide, please. You can also find the documents that you need, the colleague already showed. I would like to tell you that in a previous slide from Lucy, if I'm not mistaken, there was a link to the NCPs. There are NCPs for your countries. They have a lot of information as well to give you. But in the call itself, once you find the call that interests you in the Funding and Tenders portal, you have all the relevant documents. I have to warn you that the guide for applicants used to be much more extensive for previous calls. Now it's made more simple, but it contains a lot of links that you should use to then get access to the work program and the proposal templates, which are also important for you to familiarize yourself with what is expected of you when you are applying for funding. And last but not least, do consult the frequently asked questions, because many last-minute issues are dealt with there and not necessarily in the documents themselves. Next slide, please. So the application itself, if you've ever done it or know someone who's done it, consists of two forms, basically Part A and Part B. Part A contains all the structured data about the administrative details of the different institutions participating in the consortium, and also the funding that each institution is requesting. In part B, you can then describe the research that you intend to perform. And this is done according to the bullet points that will be then evaluated by the independent experts. So for the excellence criterion, for the impact criterion, and for the implementation criterion. Pay close attention to these forms, because in the form itself, it is very explicitly explained what is expected of you when you are writing your proposal. So a key to success is to really follow every detail that is mentioned in the form. Next slide, please. The evaluation criteria are depicted here. They are excellence, impact, and implementation. And as you can tell, they bear different weights. So we give more importance to the score given to excellence, then impact, and then implementation. Proposals that reach a minimum of 70% are eligible for funding, but obviously you need a higher score to be on the funding list, because there is a lot of competition for these calls. I will not go through all the nitty-gritty in the sub-criteria, so each criterion has sub-criteria, because this is all very well explained in the form itself. If you are curious to see, you can very easily consult those in the funding and tenders portal. And for instance, understand that you have to give exact measures on how to measure your impact, your project's impact. You need to address things such as a consortium not just being the sum of its parts, but going beyond that, what synergies it can provide, how collaborations can emerge from your project. So there are many angles to writing a proposal. Next slide, please. So grosso modo, the excellence part and the implementation part need to mesh together very well. Please devote attention to the Gantt chart when you're asked to depict your work packages and your work plan. Make sure it's clear and it addresses the objectives described in the excellence, and these put together maximize the impact of your project. And in the end, the expert evaluators look at all those aspects. Next slide, please. So as already explained by my colleagues, our call is about to open in October, right after vacation, from summer vacation. I would very much like to motivate you to apply. It will close early next year, so in March, and the budget is 77 million. I really do think that staff exchanges is a very exciting action. Don't hesitate to check in the funding and tenders portal the projects that have been awarded from the previous call. See if perhaps you know any other institutions, maybe some of them are your collaborators. Ask them if they've tried, ask them if they have feedback. Try to get familiar with the application process, and I would recommend that you try. Next slide, please. Also, for the audience today, some of you are researchers, perhaps about to embark on a secondment. Some of you are institutions, perhaps about to host a secondee. Please familiarize yourselves with the guidelines for MSCA supervision. It's very important to know how to avoid issues that can detract you from, gaining the knowledge and the skills that you're supposed to during your secondment, and how to what to look for in the supervision relationship. Next slide, please. Tips and tricks. So I would emphasize from the set of different tips and tricks here, not only the contact of your national contact point, but also to ask a collaborator to read a proposal if you have drafted either a part of a proposal or a full proposal. And also to consult those, the list in the funding and tenders portal, those projects that have succeeded. I think this gives you a good flavor for, who is out there that has tried and managed to be funded, how they did it. You perhaps, some of them. So it is not impossible to have a successful project for staff exchanges actions. And there are many ways to get information about it. Next slide, please. And that's it. So I hope it was useful and informative, and I can take any questions if there are some.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Thank you. And thank you actually to all the participants who are very, very active in the chat, in the question and answer box, and through Slido as well. So thank you all for your commitment and your motivation, and for this high level participation. Just maybe one first questions to you, Sandra, about staff exchanges. I believe this is about how to identify opportunities, because the question is opportunities for staff exchanges between Tunisia and other countries. So of course you can reply for other countries, not only for Tunisia, but I guess it's about, yes, how to identify opportunities.
So definitely, I would say national contact points know a lot more than you may think, because they have been in touch with other applicants. They have received many questions, and they can guide you. If they don't have the answer, they can guide you to someone who does. Also, if you contact institutions involved in those projects that have been recently funded, that usually the institutions involved in the projects already funded, they apply again. So you may actually find that they're preparing another proposal for another call. So this would be of interest to you. And this information is publicly available in the Funding and Tenders portal. And finally, you can find a partner using the Funding and Tenders portal as well. So I wouldn't just stay with one option. I would explore all the options available, and you will find that eventually someone is interested, and it is rather it's not an unsurmountable task to put a proposal together, because it's a very open scheme. It's a very open action. So I think you will find that there are institutions out there and people out there interested in having a collaboration with you.
Thank you very much for this very comprehensive answer. We have another question to you. Is it a must for a researcher from Africa institution to engage in staff exchange only in European institutions, or can apply to African research institutions? So the question is basically, should he or she apply to Europe only, or in an Africa institution as well?
Well, you can be seconded to Tunisia because they're associated to Horizon Europe. So our concept of what's eligible is not so much geographical. It is based on what is defined in the annexes of the work program as having associated with Horizon Europe or not. And for the moment, if you would like to stay in that geographical area, you could have a secondment that is eligible for funding if you are seconded to Tunisia. The other is, I should also say that countries that are listed as low and middle income countries, they are eligible for funding, but again to Europe, and most of the times to Europe and to associated countries. So not most of the times, all the time.
Yes, because actually we just got as well a question about can third countries receive funding in staff exchanges? So maybe you can elaborate a bit on that.
Yes, usually there's a partnership agreement established with those that are able to be beneficiaries. So again, you will see that once, let's say that you submit a proposal and the proposal is successful and you're part of this proposal, the beneficiaries get the funding, the coordinator gets the funding, distributes through the beneficiaries, and there'll be between you and the beneficiary that is hosting the researcher, let's say it's a researcher, there is an agreement in a partnership agreement, but this the Commission does not have their hands on. So it's between the institutions themselves, and it can be annexed to the consortium agreement. And there you can define the nitty-gritty of how much would be paid for this secondment and so on. It happens all the time. So it's a current thing in the staff exchanges, but not micromanaged by us.
Thank you very much. And a last question to you before passing the floor to our last speaker. Does EEAS accept secondment?
This, I don't know. I have to say, I would have to investigate. I don't know if you know, Julie.
We can investigate further then.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot again to all of the participants. And I would like also maybe to thank our colleague Gérard, who is also actually with us and who is online and replying to all the questions also in written. Thank you very much, Sandra. Again, we'll try to check the remaining questions in order to answer them before the end of this webinar. But now it is time to address the postdoctoral fellowships with my colleague Anouk Lafortune, who is also a policy officer in the Marie Skłodowska Curie Actions Unit. And actually, Anouk, as you could see in Slido and in the chat, there were already plenty of questions about postdoctoral fellowships. So I believe that you will be able to answer them during your presentation. And of course, we will also leave you the floor to answer these several questions we already got before. Thank you very much to Sandra again, and Anouk, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Julie. I hope you can hear me and you can see my screen.
We can.
Yes, great. Okay. Yes, I've seen a few questions for me, and I'll try to answer them in the presentation. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm presenting the last action, which focuses on postdoctoral fellowships. So already I've seen there were a few questions about what type of postdoctoral fellowships we offer. Well, this is one of them, actually. And the main our main action for postdoc fellowships. It's compared to the other action, postdoctoral fellowships is here it is a little bit different, because it's is the one action where the individual researcher applies together with at least one organization to our call directly. So rather than like my colleague Sorel was talking about earlier for Doctoral Networks, rather than having to apply later through access, actually here, the researcher applies to us directly with its host institution or institutions, plural. And so what postdoc fellowships does as an action is it funds a fellowship. So it is not a postdoctoral training program. It's one fellowship given to a researcher with her organization to deliver an excellent research project. So the main objective of postdoc fellowships is obviously PF is for short for postdoctoral fellowships, but it is about excellence of research. So we fund excellent research projects, innovative, beyond the state of the art. But the objective of this action is also to support the skill development and career development of the postdoctoral fellow. And we do this through the supervision provided in their host organizations, through the opportunities for mobility, and that's international mobility, so physical mobility, intersectoral mobility, and interdisciplinary collaboration as well. One of our focus is also more and more, let's say, is to connect and bridge with the non-academic sector. And when we talk about the non-academic sector, we don't only mean the private sector, the industry, business, but that also include possibly public administration, governments, civil society, NGOs, and so on. So there are opportunities to collaborate through your projects with different types of organizations in academia or beyond as well. The call for postdoctoral fellowships this year is currently open. It opened in May, and it will close. The deadline for applications is the 14th of September. So really, really close after the summer. So bear this date in mind so you don't miss it. We offer two types of fellowships under postdoctoral fellowships with slightly different participating organizations and eligibility conditions for the researcher. So the one on the left of the slide, the European Fellowships, they are open to researchers from any nationality. So including countries, including researchers from third countries, so from any country in Africa, for example, for them to come to an organization that is based in the EU or in associated countries of Horizon Europe. So this action it lasts up to from 1 year to 24 months, and the researcher has to move to the organization in Europe to work on the projects they've proposed in their application. It's open to all fields of research, so any discipline, any topic. We are a bottom-up program. And so that includes also postdoctoral fellowships, which means that the application, the proposal comes from, in the case of postdoc fellowships, comes from the researcher himself. In other actions, it's led by the organizations, but it comes from the research community, and it's assessed by evaluators from the research community as well. So it is not directly, your proposal does not need to be directly related to EU priorities as well, just bearing in mind some of the questions I've seen in the chat. Now, this is European Fellowships on the side of the, let's say, if you're an African researcher interested to apply to postdoc, this is the fellowships for you. Now, if you are representing an organization from Africa, you would have the opportunity to participate in global fellowships as the host of what we call the outgoing phase. And the global fellowships, the way it is structured, is it gives the opportunity for a researcher from an EU member state or associated country to go to an organization based in a third country to gain experience, develop their network, develop their skills and experiences for they can go to a third country for up to 2 years, and then they must come back to a host organization based in Europe. And by Europe, I obviously mean member states and associated countries of Horizon Europe. So in this case, that could include Tunisia, for example. So this is, and again, Global Fellowships is also, just like European Fellowships, open to all fields of research. It's bottom up, and it's very much, the proposals are led by the researcher. Wait, just to state it clearly, what do we mean by associated countries and third countries? So here you have a complete list. We have some countries that are in process of association. So at the moment, they benefit from transitional arrangements where organizations from these countries can submit an application, but if the countries are not associated on time, there is a risk of that organization being ineligible. So bear that in mind when you're preparing your an application. There are other options, optional features that you can do during your fellowship under the postdoctoral fellowship, and it is supported by the grant. So you are funded to go on in this case these secondments, for example. So the first one optional feature is the secondment, and you can do a secondment anywhere in the world in a host organization anywhere in the world, and so that host organization will be an associated partner in your project. It can be done in a single secondment, or it can be done in several secondments. The only limit is it cannot be over a third of the fellowship duration. It can be done in any sector, in a university or in a research center or in any organization from the non-academic sector. The activity, the secondment itself, it must contribute to your project. I hope you can still hear me because I see that my connection has gone down a little bit, but it seems to be fine now.
It works back. We had some issues with the last two sentences, I would say, but now we can hear you again.
Okay, thank you, Julie. So what I was saying is that the secondments must contribute to your project, so to your research project, but also to the researcher's skill development and career development. So to the impact that the fellowship has on the researcher as well. The other option that we have, which is new, is the non-academic placements. It's brand new since last year. And the idea of this novelty is to give you an extra 6 months in addition to your standard funding, to your standard fellowship period. We add 6 months of funding to give you time at the end of your project to do a placement in a non-academic organization. That organization must be based in a member state or in a country associated to Horizon Europe. The objectives of those placements, sorry, for us is to provide more opportunities for our postdoc researchers to gain experiences in different sectors and provide them with other career opportunities. And also to stimulate the knowledge transfer. So the placement comes at the end of the project so that they have their research results and they can then explore together with their host of the placement how they can exploit those results further in other sectors. So you get the advantage of this is you get extra funding, because you get an extra 6 months maximum. It has to be an integral part of your proposal. So it has to have clear added value for the research project, for the impact of the project, the research impacts, but also the career development and skill building of the researcher. And then there are a few conditions for it. The placement host, as I said, must be an EU member state or associated country. It must be a non-academic organization, and the host must provide a letter of commitment when you apply. So with the application, you must have I'll skip this. You must have a letter of commitment. Here, I've skipped the slide before because you'll get the slides later on, so I'll skip through quicker. You can have a look at it at a later stage. This is just a summary of the differences between secondments and non-academic placement. So different opportunities with different requirements at application stage and different advantages. So 2 options to consider integrating to an application to postdoctoral fellowships. Now, in terms of eligibility conditions, there are conditions for the researchers and there are conditions specific to the participating organizations. So on the organization side, all postdoctoral fellowships applications must have one organization called the beneficiary. So that is based in an EU member state or a Horizon Europe associated country. This is the organization that will sign the grant agreement. It's the organization that will recruit the researcher. It's the main host for your European fellowships, and it is the host of the return phase for a global fellowships. So remember, for a global fellowship, you can go 2 years to a third country, but you have to come back for a year to a host in Europe, and this is the host that will. This is the beneficiary. Then, if you do a global fellowship, you will need this third country associated partner. So this host of the first phase of your fellowship in a third country. And this host will need to submit a letter of commitment, just like the placement host at application stage, committing to hosting you for the duration of your period of your outgoing phase, as we call it. For individual researchers for postdoctoral fellowships, we have, I've mentioned it before, we have for nationality, the restriction applies to global fellowships, where you must be either a nationals or long-term residents of a member state or an associated country of Horizon Europe. For European fellowships, there are absolutely no restriction on nationality. So European fellowships, anyone from any researcher from any nationality can apply as long as they meet the other eligibility conditions. And those other conditions, well, you can only submit one proposal as a researcher. You must be in possession, you must have already your PhD, or at least have defended it successfully. And you cannot have more than 8 years of research experience after your PhD. There are a few exceptions to for time spent outside research or for leave that you've had to take, and I'll detail them they're detailed in the next slide. So I'll cover it afterwards. There's also, like our other actions, like the doctoral networks, there is a mobility rule, so you cannot have lived or carried out your main activity in the country of your main host organization for more than 12 months in the last 3 years before the call deadline. So bear that in mind. We also have a new rule as of this year that linked to resubmission. And if you applied last year and your score was below 70%, you're not allowed to resubmit with the same host organizations. For the 8 years research experience, so as I said before, one of our eligibility condition is that you cannot have more than 8 years of research experience after your PhD to be eligible for postdoctoral fellowships. Now, we do exclude time that was spent not doing research. And here are the exceptions to our 8 years to our rule. So you can extract the time that you've spent on leave, on maternity leave, for example, from the calculation of the 8 years since your PhD. There are actually very detailed guidelines and also a self kind of calculation tool that have been prepared by the European Research Executive Agency, which are really good. And I've put the link on the PowerPoint, so I invite you to have a look at this document if you're in doubt as to whether you meet that eligibility condition, because they will help you calculate to check, self-check whether you meet that condition. At the end of the day, it's the executive agency that will make the decision as to whether you meet all the eligibility conditions for postdoctoral fellowships. In terms of the grant, just like our other actions, the funding that the beneficiary gets is split between funding that is given to as allowances for the researcher, and funding that is given to the institution to help the management of the grant, and also to support any training activities, any research activities and equipment needed for the research project. So I'll just cover this quickly, but essentially what I want to focus on are for the researchers, the two first column, the living allowance and the mobility allowance, because these two, all postdoc researchers will get these two allowances. Now, bear in mind that the living allowance, same as Doctoral Networks, it's a gross amount, so it's not net, and it's adapted depending on the country of your host organization. So there's a slight correction for different in different countries. But this is the amount the allowance that researchers will get, the living and the mobility allowance. Then if applicable, you can benefit also from other allowances as well, like the family allowance, for example. The other one I wanted to focus on was the research, training, and networking contribution. This is on the institutional unit contribution side of the slide, because you get €1,000 per month to help you, to support you the needs for the research projects. So this can be equipment, this can be funding fieldwork, this can be funding conference trips, this can be funding courses that the researcher might want to attend to develop skills and different skills as well. So it can fund a lot of activities, both training and research activities. And now on to the award criteria. Here I've seen a question earlier on asking from a early career researcher. And as you can see from our award criteria, we really take into account a very holistic kind of evaluation of the proposal that we receive, and we evaluate everything and we take into account everything. So not just the publication track record of the postdoc researcher, but a much broader range of to assess the quality of the proposal. So that is, we assess the project proposal, so how innovative, how ambitious, how beyond the state of the art it is. We assess the methodology of the research project. We also assess the quality of the supervision and what we call the two-way knowledge transfer. And that is how the hosts benefit from the knowledge and profile and experience of the researcher, of the postdoc researcher, and how the postdoc researcher himself also benefits, or in return benefits from the knowledge, expertise, network, support provided by the supervision and by the host organization. We obviously take into account the researcher's professional experience, his or her competences and skills. And then we take into account the impact. And when we assess the impact, we assess the impact of the project on the researcher, so skill building, career development, but also on the impact of the research projects and the potential societal, scientific, maybe even economic impact of the project. As well. And then finally, the quality and efficiency of the implementation. Well, we obviously, I think, as it was said for staff exchanges, this needs to be coherent and well designed in order to achieve its objectives. So this I will skip, but this is just to mention that there is a call that is linked to postdoc fellowships that that is open to postdoctoral fellowships applicants if you apply in organizations in certain countries. So I invite you to look at it. I won't go into details because again you will receive the slides later on. And yes, just to say that postdoctoral fellowships are competitive. They're a very competitive call. So we have a success rate of around 14% overall. And it also I also wanted to highlight, well, I still have a bit of time, that the evaluation of the call here, I'm looking at the time to grant on the slide. The evaluation of the call takes at least 5 months. So if you submit an application in mid-September, you will not receive results of the call until sometime in February 2023. So bear this in mind that it does take time to evaluate. We receive between 9,000 and 10,000 proposals per call. So it mobilizes a huge network of experts from all fields of research. And it takes time to go through the process of checking eligibility condition, evaluating the proposals for the experts. Now, a few things I also wanted to highlight in terms of commitments. If you're successful, you do need to move to the country of the beneficiary, or in the case of global fellowships, in the country of the your associated partner. I also wanted to highlight it's already been done before that the supervision should respect the guidelines on supervision that we've published. The projects also should address as best as they can the principle of the MSCA Green Charter to ensure that the projects are as environmentally friendly as possible. And a few other commitments, and I'll again the slides will be shared so you can have a look. Here is the link to the call page to apply for this year's call, and I say it again, the deadline for this year's postdoctoral fellowships call is on 14th of September 2022. So if you're considering applying, if you've already started to prepare an application, bear this date in mind and try to apply not at the last minute, as early as possible, so so you're sure that it's all submitted and ready to go. Now, I've seen a few questions about or heard a few questions about how to look for potential host organizations. Euraccess, obviously, it's been mentioned over and over again, but Euraccess will publish offers from host organizations. So sometimes you'll find some for postdoctoral fellowships. You will also find some for our other action that has postdoctoral fellowships as well, of postdoctoral programs that is co-fund, and so you can see the offers, the vacancies, the offers advertised on Euraccess. If you're looking for a non-academic partner, there are different opportunities as well. And I also wanted to highlight the new, I think it was launched last month, matchmaking platform of the project of our national contact points, and here it covers a few of the MSc actions. So it covers postdoctoral fellowships. It also covers doctoral networks, and it's so organizations and researchers can connect on the matchmaking platform and try to find fits, collaboration that will work. So I invite you to have a look here if you're looking for partners. And here are more key links to the different documents that we've mentioned. I would just like to highlight, which is it's a bit buried in the midst of all this, but the MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowships Handbook has just been released. This is a handbook prepared by our National Contact Points project, MSCA Net, and the link is here. So it's there to help you prepare your application for postdoctoral fellowships 2022. So thank you very much for listening. That's it for me. I hope I have answered most of the questions, at least the ones that I've seen before starting.
Thank you very much, Anouk. Thank you. Indeed, you did answer a lot of questions. Maybe if you don't mind, I will just go on with some which arrived while you were talking. So one of them is simply about the mobility rule. If you could just explain it very briefly again. The question is, if the candidate previously made an internship before 2 years, for example, in the host institution, is he eligible to apply for the postdoctoral fellowship? So basically, yes, the question is about the mobility, please.
Yeah. So the mobility rule is that you can, and it's the same for all our actions. So doctoral networks, postdoctoral fellowships, for the researchers, the rule is the same. You cannot have lived in the country of your main host organization for more than a year within the last 3 years. So it really depends on the duration of the internship that you did. If it's less than a year and you actually have lived in the country of that organization for less than 1 year in the last 3 years, then you could apply with that organization. I also wanted, so it's both, we both take into account living in the country and working in the country. So if you've teleworked and that was your main activity, or if you've studied and studied remotely in a full-time in an organization in another country, that will also affect the mobility rule.
Thank you very much. I'm checking also. One of the question was about, yes, if there is any way we can see examples or samples of postdoc research proposals that have received funding in the past. So to get, I guess, inspired by good practices.
They're not automatically published, actually. So the only way is through your own networks. If you ask around, try to find people in your networks that have been successful, who know someone that has been successful, and who will be willing to share their applications with you. But the proposals are not made public afterwards.
Thank you. We have a last question to you. Do we have postdoctoral opportunities where the researchers stay most of the time in his own country rather than in the host country?
In MSCA, MSCA has the mobility and the physical mobility has always been the essence of the program. It's been at the core of the program ever since its creation. So we've celebrated our 25th anniversary last year, and mobility has always been at the core of the program. So no, in MSCA we do not allow we do not allow to carry out a project in one country when you're actually working with the host institution, because being in direct contact with the research team in the organization has significant added value, and it's been demonstrated over and over again in impact assessments that we've done of our programs over the last 25 years. This is one of the main added value of the program, and so this is something that we do not offer.
Thank you very much, Anouk. Thanks a lot for this presentation. I see also some positive comments in the chat. So I believe that your presentation has been clear to the participants as well. So thank you very much. I will maybe just give the floor back to Sandra, if Sandra is still there, because you found out the answer about EEAS. So I saw that you sent the answer in the chat, but maybe you would like to explain it orally.
So it's a very good question, and from what I gather from a quick tour of the office with the colleagues that are here, actually there has never been a case in the projects that they know of. They've had the JRC, but never the EAS. So what I've been told is that you should inquire within your own institution first how this would take place, and then once you've got some insight internally, then you can turn to the research inquiry and ask the question again. But basically, it's not off the table, but it's not on the table either. So you would need to first figure out because basically you need a research output associated with the secondment. So, and in what context this would be done, it would need to be made clear. So it's a sort of not answer, but kind of an answer. So.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sandra. Thank you very much for this additional answer. Yes, please.
May I say something else? Because I see that this time the slides, I'm not sure there was something on working as an expert for the European Commission or registering as an expert. And this could be an interesting, I can put it in the chat, because this could also, yeah.
I think that there was one reference in your presentation, but please elaborate if you wish to.
It is one way to get some insight. Of course, just registering as an expert doesn't guarantee you're going to be selected, because this is nobody is assured a participation. During the evaluation process, we select our experts based on keywords and so on. But it is free, and it would be perhaps interesting. It's definitely interesting for us because it refreshes our pool of experts. And it would be a way, if you ever work as an expert for our evaluations, to have a feel for how the evaluation goes and what a successful proposal would look like. So maybe I put the link in the chat, if that's okay.
And again, I think there is a reference in your presentation, but please feel free to share a link in the chat, and we will share again all the slides of your presentations with all the participants. Before giving the floor, thank you, Sandra, thank you so much. Before coming to a conclusion, I see that Sohail has raised his hand, so maybe you would like to say something
Yeah, just
else,
a follow-up to a question that I got. There was a question on whether there is a way to find partners to form consortia. And I said that I'm not aware that we have such a service. But then now I saw that in my colleague's Anouk presentation last month, a module was launched, as part of the MSCA net project for and by national contact points. And just to mention that the link to that is in Anouk's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sohail, for this additional information, which will be useful to all the participants, I believe. Thank you very much. Actually, before coming to a conclusion, I just would like to share with you again the call calendar, but I will just check for this slide, because it's really very useful for you to have in mind what comes next in terms of calls. Sorry. So I will just try to share this again, and then I will, of course, here it is. I don't know if you can see the slide again, but really keep that in mind. It's very important for you to not miss any opportunities. And again, these slides will be shared with you anyway after this webinar. I actually saw also many reference to support and how to get more information and how to get support for the different applications, which are very competitive indeed. It's true that in Africa you don't have national contact points in all the countries, so I really would like to stress again the support of Euraccess Africa. And again, that's the reason also why we were so happy that Euraccess Africa was launched this year, because we truly think it will be very helpful for candidates in Africa. And I would like also to stress again that of course you can count on NCPs when they are there, and also NCPs in host countries possibly. And just one last thing again, the Marie Curie Alumni Association and its African chapter may be also of help. But again, for everything which is related to your applications to job opportunities or to information about the different actions, I believe that NCPs and national contact points, and also Euraccess Africa can be of full support. So I will stop here. I will leave the floor to Ahmed to give the final word of this webinar, but I would like to thank again all the speakers, all the colleagues who have kindly accepted to join today. And I would like, of course, to thank all the participants who were very active today. We hope we replied to your questions, but of course we will remain at your disposal after this webinar, and again share with you all relevant information. Thank you very much to all, and Ahmed, I leave you the floor.
Thank you, Julie, for your nice coordination. Thank you to all the speakers, Lucy, Suhail, Sandra, Anouk, for these nice presentations and all the given details. Thanks, Gerard, also for your great support, and big thanks for all the participants. We have a lot of potential in Africa, and we must take advantage of all the opportunities offered to our research community. Do not hesitate to contact us, follow us on social media and in the Euraccess Africa website. We have a very good action plan and very interesting events coming soon for the benefit of our community in Africa. Be connected, be proactive. Thanks again to you all, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you all.